What's going on, everybody? Mortym here, this time bringing you a look at a build I have for Divinity Original Sin 2. So this build is actually focused on one of the presets. I just really like it. I think it's a very strong one, so I kind of took that, the skills I would use late game, which is what I'm going to show you guys right now, and then I'll walk you through kind of what I would do and start with, and then we'll look at some of the lower level stuff as well, so you can actually see how some of the combat plays. Now, starting off, we'll look at the base stats. So strength, intelligence, and constitution are where you're going to want to focus. Intelligence I would focus less on. So your necromancer stuff does in fact take a bonus from intelligence, but the necromancer stuff in this particular style of build that I made is kind of less of the focal point. We're using that to summon adds, and we're using more of the utility necromancer stuff than anything specifically damaging. So I would focus slightly less on intelligence. As you can see, at a base I have 28 strength, 24 constitution, actually 20 constitution, and 24 intelligence. A little bit in memory just to give us some extra spell slots. I actually have 0 points in wits. I just have a crap ton of wits on my gear, which is helping us out quite a bit with our crit chance. So we have 27% from gear, 11% from wits, and our crit multiplier from some of our armor and stuff. So I don't have Lone Wolf on. This is designed basically to use with a group. You could easily do Lone Wolf with this. You just have to change your talents out a little bit. I have actually played this with Lone Wolf. It is pretty fun. It's actually very effective at it. But that said, this I had more of a design for a group, and because of that I wanted to show you guys the stats without that on. So I do have late game gear on. Everything is pretty good from the last act. It's probably not the best stuff in the world, but it's pretty solid stuff, so these stats are pretty much the top of what you'd be looking at. So that's it for the base stats. So looking at our actual combat abilities, what you'll be putting points into besides attributes, we have two-handed. So we're obviously going to max that out because we are using a two-handed weapon. And this increases our two-handed just straight up damage-wise, as well as gives us a bunch of critical multiplier. Now 10 is all you can put into it by assigning points into it. However, it can go higher with some gear. Not really interested in anything in defense. Necromancer, we're only going to bring that up to 3 because later levels only heal you for the damage you deal, which is nice, and it certainly helps out. But like I said, we're only using Necromancer for the utility, and this doesn't actually increase any damage of those abilities, so all we're really doing is raising this high enough to get the skills we want to use. And then coming down here, we have Warfare. Again, we want to max that out because it's going to do, all of our physical attacks will deal more damage. Not just the Warfare skills, but all physical attacks. All this other stuff is just stuff from my gear that I happen to have on. Civil abilities is kind of irrelevant because that's just extra stuff depending on how you want to play the game. And bringing us to our actual talents. So these bottom 3 are race and skill related. There's a couple you can pick up throughout the story. And then these top 5 are the ones you actually get to pick between levels 1 and 20. Now, I love playing with Pet Pal personally. However, some people don't like to use it on their main character. I just happen to, and normally this guy has a group with him, and I just like to be the one talking to the animals. So with that in mind, though, you don't actually need Pet Pal. There are probably better options, truthfully, so that's just something to keep in mind right off the bat. I really like Picture of Health because we're maxing out Warfare with this guy, and he's a frontline fighter, so that's going to put a lot of extra vitality on him and make him much more tanky. Mnemonic, again, that's just to give me extra memory slots. I mean, alternatively, you could just put 3 extra points in memory to get that. It's just an ease of use kind of thing. Executioner is amazing. So this guy will be dealing a lot of killing blows, and this gives us extra actions after we do so. All skilled up is awesome because it gives us extra combat points, and the civil ability is just an extra, of course. Now, the 2 I would change out if you want to are Mnemonic and Pet Pal. Again, Lone Wolf is a great way to play this. I certainly recommend it. It is fun. It's just not how I chose to present this video. So that said, the other one would be Savage Sortilege, however you happen to pronounce that, which would give magical skills a critical chance equal to your critical chance score. Now, if you're going to use that one, I would actually recommend putting more of a focus on your Necromancer abilities, because essentially what that's going to do is give those abilities your crit chance. which is of course certainly nice. But with the way I have this set up, I only have about 3 of these that would even benefit from that anyway, so it's not something I decided to pick up. Opportunist is always pretty nice because, again, you're a frontline attacker. You're going to be near a lot of enemies, so Opportunist is going to give you ability to perform attacks of opportunity. So those are good options if you don't want to use Mnemonic or Pet Pal on your main guy and you want to actually try to min-max this guy a little bit. So going in from there, I recommend using the strength gear. The way they roll gear, it's pretty much impossible to tell you specific items to use, but essentially the items that require strength are going to be the one you want to go with. They give you a lot of physical armor, less magical armor, but they typically have your warfare and extra crit chance and all that stuff on them, so that's what you want to use. Now, going from there into skills. So with our mnemonic and everything, that's going to give us 16 memorizable skills. Now we're going to start down here. From Warfare, we're going to use Battle Stomp, Phoenix Dive, Battering Ram, Crippling Blow, and Whirlwind. And then for our Source ability, we're going to use Onslaught. So, again, with the way I like to play it, which works out for me, at least the way I've enjoyed playing, Battle Stomp is a great ranged ability, but more importantly, it sets knockdown on enemies with no physical armor. So if you can't actually reach an enemy, but they don't have any physical armor, you can knock them down. Phoenix Dive and Battering Ram are your movement abilities. They're very important because as a melee character, you're very strong in melee, but you do actually have to get to the enemy first. So Phoenix Dive literally just leaps you through for 1 action point to quite a big range too, actually, just to show you. It is fairly large, especially if you have high ground. You're going to have a lot of opportunity to move. And then we have Battering Ram, which again has a pretty solid chance, but in addition, it's actually going to deal some damage, as well as also set knockdown if it breaks through physical armor, which again, I'm a pretty big fan of. So, then we come down to Crippling Blow and Whirlwind. Whirlwind is just a really solid AoE attack. That's pretty much all there is to that one. Crippling Blow is a solid hit, but then on top of that, it sets crippled if they don't have any physical armor, which is great if you want to make sure enemies aren't trying to run away from you. And then lastly, as our source ability, I have Onslaught. Now, if you don't want to use Onslaught, Overpower is actually a pretty great one too. It'll completely destroy physical armor if yours is higher, which it often is if you play this. I don't really like any of the Necromancer source abilities. So you have Totems of the Necromancer, which, I mean, it's okay, but I just don't like it. Summon Inner Demon, again, it gives you a bunch of, essentially you just summon an Inner Demon, that's exactly what it does. It's cool, I just don't really like how it plays, that's just a personal choice. Grasp of the Starved is actually great if you focus more on the Necromancer stuff, which I did not. But if you pump that into it, that'll do a crap ton of damage wherever you have blood surfaces and blood clouds. Black Shroud is pretty good for battlefield control. But personally, I like to use Onslaught. Because again, we're focused more on the physical side of this. This does a bunch of damage, and that's pretty much all it tries to do. And then going on from there, we have our actual Necromancer abilities. So I like to use Raise Bloated Corpse, but truthfully, this one's kind of, it's kind of whatever. If you were going to replace a Necromancer skill on this one, I would recommend using this one. I just like it aesthetically and everything, but truthfully, if you want to pick up like Mass Corpse Explosion or something, that's probably a better way to go, especially damage-wise. Mosquito Swarm is a classic. You'll deal a bunch of damage, restore vitality equal to the damage dealt, and set bleeding if they don't have physical. So this is a ranged attack, so if you can't get to them for whatever reason, or if you just want to set bleeding and also heal yourself, this is a good way to go. And then we come over to Decaying Touch, because again, we're pretty close to enemies. This will reach out, touch them, sets Decay if they don't have any physical armor, which will make them take piercing damage from healing spells and potions, which is a great debuff, especially if you're using Torturer. And then we have Infect. Infect deals a bunch of damage, but also grants disease, which reduces the damage they're going to do to you, and also their constitution, which will lower their total health. Then we move over to Bone Widow. This is probably my favorite Necromancer spell. So this thing summons a giant spider, a bone spider, and it will attack things for you. It actually has a burrow attack it can do to get closer to enemies as well. I love that thing. It's probably, again, my favorite Necromancer ability. But moving on, we also have Shackles of Pain. Again, that's a favorite of mine. So you mark a target and it will receive all of the damage you receive. So that damage ignores resistances the target might have, whole 9 yards. So if I get hit, the enemy I connect with Shackles of Pain will also take that damage. And then lastly, we have Bone Cage, which is just a straight up awesome physical armor boost, which again, you're up close with enemies. So that's the way to go. So there you have it, guys. There's the skills and everything I want to go and use. And last but not least, in-game is kind of boring. So what I want to do is show you guys basically how this guy would play from a bigger battle in the actual lower acts. So once you get to in-game, you can kind of face roll everything. So I don't think that's a fair standard of what you would start with. Real quick before I do that, though, I am going to run through level stuff. So as you're leveling, what I would recommend is hitting the 3 Necromancer you need right off the bat, because you can get them done really quick. And then after that, I would alternate between Warfare and Two-Handed, which is both going to increase your damage. Attribute-wise is real easy. Just spread it across the 3 evenly as you're going. And then talents, I would definitely start with Executioner or Picture of Health, just to get your vitality and everything up right off the bat, unless you're using Lone Wolf, and then obviously that's the very first one you want if you are using Lone Wolf. You want to start with that. After that, Executioner or Picture of Health, you want to use those. If you're going to use Savage, Sortilege, however you pronounce it, then that would be my next one. And then I would go with All Skilled Up, and then lastly, Mnemonic or whatever else you want to use. All right, so we're going to break from here, and then I'm going to show you guys some combat. Alright everybody, so that is going to do it for my look at the Imperial Inquisitor build. So I'm kind of hoping to use this just as a jumping off point, kind of get how everybody felt about this one, any ideas for things I maybe didn't include. I actually do have some ideas for some other builds, so I just wanted to get everybody's opinion on how I did this video and see if there's maybe any ways I could improve before I put out the next ones, which I am pretty excited about. I do have them planned. So if you enjoyed the video and you're looking forward to the next one, I certainly hope you subscribe, but either way, I hope you have a great day.